Las Vegas, March 1969, 2:17 a.m. The cold hit Dean the moment he stepped out of the Sands Hotel back entrance. March in Vegas, desert cold, the kind that goes through you. He'd just finished his second show, the late one, the one for high rollers and insomniacs. 2 hours on stage, 200 people laughing at every joke, applauding every song. Now it was just him, his bodyguard Mike, and an empty alley between the hotel and the parking lot. They were halfway to the car when Dean heard it, shouting, male voices, aggressive, then a sound he knew too well, the wet thud of fist meeting flesh. Dean stopped. Mike stopped. "Boss, we should keep moving." Dean held up his hand, listened. More shouting. Another thud. Then a voice, different from the others, higher, desperate. "Please, I didn't do anything." Dean started walking toward the sound. Mike followed, hand moving instinctively toward his jacket. The alley opened into a wider service area behind a shuttered liquor store. 3 men in LVPD uniforms stood in a semicircle around a 4th man on the ground. The man on the ground was black, maybe late 20s, hands cuffed behind his back, face already swelling. One officer had his boot on the man's shoulder, pressing him into the concrete. Another was holding a baton. The third was watching, hand on his gun. Dean walked closer. The officer with the baton raised it and brought it down hard across the man's ribs. The sound made Dean's stomach turn. "What's going on?" Dean's voice cut through the alley. All 3 officers turned. The one with the boot didn't move it. "Police business," he said. "Badge number 247. Dean would remember that. "Keep walking." Dean looked at the man on the ground. Blood running from his nose, mixing with tears. Eyes squeezed shut. Not fighting, not resisting. Just enduring. "Doesn't look like police business," Dean said. "Looks like 3 cops beating a man who's already handcuffed." Officer 247 took a step toward Dean. "Sir, I'm going to ask you one more time to move along before you get arrested for interfering with an arrest." "Arrest?" Dean looked at the man on the ground. "He's on the ground in cuffs. What's he getting arrested with? His face?" The second officer, the one with the baton, squinted at Dean. Recognition dawned. "Wait, are you—" "Dean Martin," Dean said. "And you are—" The officer's face went white. The third officer, the one watching, took his hand off his gun. "Mr. Martin, this is just a routine arrest." "Routine," Dean repeated. He looked at the man on the ground again. Fresh bruises forming. Blood on the concrete. "This is what routine looks like?" "He resisted arrest," Officer 247 said. "That's why force was necessary." The man on the ground lifted his head slightly. "I didn't resist," he said, voice thick with pain. "I didn't do anything." The officer with the baton kicked him. Hard. In the ribs. The man gasped. Curled into himself. Dean moved before thinking. Stepped between the officers and the man on the ground. "Touch him again," Dean said quietly, "and I become a witness to assault." "You need to step back, Mr. Martin," Officer 247 said, but his voice had changed, less certain. Dean didn't move. "Mike," he said over his shoulder, "get the camera from the car." Mike hesitated for half a second, then ran. The officers looked at each other. "What camera?" Officer 247 asked. "Polaroid," Dean said. "Takes pictures, develops in 60 seconds. Very convenient for documenting evidence." "You can't—" "Public alley, public servants, public record. I absolutely can." The officer with the baton took a step forward. "We'll confiscate that camera." "Try it," Dean said. "I've got lawyers who'll have this in the New York Times by breakfast. Front page. Dean Martin witnesses, Las Vegas police. Beat handcuffed man. How's that sound?" Officer 247's jaw clenched. "We're just doing our job." "Your job is beating people who are already restrained?" Mike came running back, Polaroid in hand. "Start with his face," Dean said. "Then their badge numbers. Then the blood on the ground." The flash went off. Once, twice, 3 times. The officers stood frozen, realizing they'd lost control of the situation. "What's your name?" Dean asked the man on the ground. The man looked up at him, eyes wide with something between hope and disbelief. "Robert Chen," he said. "Bobby, Corporal, U.S. Army, 1st Infantry Division." "Where were you coming from, Bobby?" "Work. Night shift at Caesars. In the kitchen. I was walking home." "Where's home?" 2 blocks that way." Bobby nodded down the alley. "I live on East Fremont." Dean looked at Officer 247. "So he was walking home from work, 2 blocks from his apartment, and you stopped him. Why?" "He matched the description of a robbery suspect." What description? Officer 247 glanced at his partners. Black male, 20s, 6 feet. Dean looked at Bobby, looked at the officers. That's it? That's the whole description? We have discretion to stop and question? Bobby, Dean said, not taking his eyes off the officer. How tall are you? 6'2", Bobby said. About 180. And the suspect? Dean asked the officer. Officer 247 hesitated. 5'8", 5'9", around 220. The silence that followed was heavy. So he's 4 inches taller and 40 pounds lighter than your suspect, Dean said. But you stopped him anyway, cuffed him, beat him, because he matched the description of being black and male. Look, we don't have to explain. Yeah, you do. Because I'm standing here watching you manufacture a reason to assault a veteran who was walking home from work. And I'm not going anywhere until an ambulance gets here. An ambulance? He's bleeding. You broke at least one rib. He needs medical attention. Dean looked at Mike. Call it. Mike pulled out a radio, started calling. Officer 247 stepped closer to Dean, voice low. You're making a mistake, Mr. Martin. We can make your life very difficult in this town. Dean smiled, no warmth in it. And I can make sure you never work in this town again. Your move. They stared at each other for a long 10 seconds. Then sirens. An ambulance Mike had called screaming into the alley. 2 paramedics jumped out. One of them saw Bobby on the ground, cuffed and bleeding. Jesus Christ, what happened to him? Police brutality, Dean said clearly. I witnessed the whole thing. The paramedics looked at the officers, looked at Dean Martin, started treating Bobby without another word. The senior paramedic, a woman in her 40s, knelt beside Bobby. Sir, can you tell me where you're hurt? Ribs, Bobby gasped. Face? Head? She looked up at the officers. Was he resisting? Before they could answer, Dean spoke. No, he was handcuffed, and on the ground when they kicked him. She nodded once, kept working. Officer 247 pulled Dean aside. You're going to regret this. The only thing I regret, Dean said, is not getting here sooner. The ambulance took Bobby to Sunrise Hospital. Dean followed in his car. Mike drove. Dean sat in the back with the Polaroid spread out on the seat beside him. 12 photos. Bobby's bloody face from 3 angles. The officer's badge numbers clear and sharp. The blood on the concrete. The boot print on Bobby's shoulder. Evidence. At the hospital, Dean waited while Bobby was x-rayed. Broken jaw, 3 cracked ribs, severe contusions. The kind of injuries you don't get from resisting arrest. You get them from being beaten while defenseless. A doctor came out around 4 a.m. Mr. Martin, Mr. Chen is asking for you? Dean found Bobby in a hospital bed, face swollen, torso wrapped. He looked smaller than he had in the alley, younger. You didn't have to stay, Bobby said through wired teeth. Yeah, I did. They're going to come after you for this. Let them. Bobby closed his eyes. I didn't do anything wrong. I was just walking home. I know. They do this to us all the time. Stop us, search us, find reasons. Most of the time we just take it because fighting back makes it worse. Not this time. Bobby looked at him. Why'd you stop? Because you needed someone to stop. Dean pulled a chair over, sat down. Bobby, I need you to tell me everything. From the beginning. Exactly what happened before I got there. Bobby took a careful breath, pain flashing across his face. I got off work at 1:30. Started walking home like I do every night. I was on Fremont, almost to my building. Police car pulled up. 2 officers got out, asked for my ID. I gave it to them. They said I matched the description of a robbery suspect. I said I just got off work. I had my work ID, my time card, everything. They didn't care. Told me to put my hands on the car. Searched me. Found nothing. Then, they cuffed me anyway. Did you resist? No. I've been black in America for 26 years. I know better. When did the 3rd officer show up? After they cuffed me. He pulled up maybe 2 minutes later. That's when they started hitting me. Said I was resisting. I wasn't. I was on the ground with my hands cuffed behind my back, and they were kicking me. Dean made notes on a napkin. Every detail. The robbery they mentioned. When did it happen? I don't know. They didn't say. Dean left Bobby's room and found a phone. Called his lawyer. Woke him up. Bernie, it's Dean. I need you to do something for me. Find out if there was a robbery reported in Vegas tonight. Time, location, suspect description, everything. Dean, it's 4 in the morning. Please. Bernie sighed. Give me 30 minutes. Dean waited in the hospital cafeteria, drinking terrible coffee. Bernie called back at 4:47 a.m. There was a robbery. Liquor store on Charleston Boulevard. Reported at 11:45 p.m. Suspect described as black male, 5'8", approximately 220, wearing a red jacket and jeans. Where's Charleston from East Fremont? 3 miles, different neighborhood entirely. And the physical description? Nothing like the man you described. Dean thanked him, hung up, went back to Bobby's room. The robbery was 3 miles away, 90 minutes before they stopped you. You're 6 inches taller and 40 pounds lighter than the suspect. They had no cause to stop you. 'Cause doesn't matter when you're black and walking at night. It's going to matter now. The next morning, Dean held a press conference. Not at a hotel, not at a casino. In front of Sunrise Hospital, where Bobby was still being treated. Reporters came because Dean Martin called a press conference. They stayed because of what he said. Last night, at 2:17 a.m., I witnessed 3 Las Vegas Metropolitan Police officers beat a man while he was handcuffed and on the ground. His name is Robert Chen. He's 26 years old. He's a U.S. Army veteran who served 2 tours in Vietnam. He was walking home from his job at Caesar's Palace. The officers stopped him, claiming he matched the description of a robbery suspect. He didn't. The suspect was 3 inches shorter, 40 pounds heavier, and the robbery happened 3 miles away, 90 minutes earlier. None of that mattered. They cuffed him anyway, and then they beat him, kicked him, used a baton on him while he was defenseless. Dean held up the Polaroids. I have photos. I have Bobby's medical records, broken jaw, cracked ribs, the kind of injuries you don't get from resisting arrest. You get them from being beaten while you're already restrained. A reporter raised her hand. Mr. Martin, the police report says Mr. Chen was resisting arrest and force was necessary to subdue him. Dean looked directly at the camera. That's a lie. I was there. Bobby was handcuffed and on the ground begging them to stop. They kicked him anyway. And when I tried to intervene, they threatened to arrest me for interfering. The only reason they didn't is because I'm Dean Martin and I had a camera. Another reporter. What do you want to happen? I want those 3 officers fired. I want the LVPD to admit they beat an innocent man. And I want to make sure this never happens to anyone else in this city. The story went national by noon. Dean Martin accuses police of brutality. The photos ran in newspapers across the country. Bobby's swollen face, the officers' badge numbers. By evening, the Las Vegas Police Department was drowning in calls. The chief of police, Thomas Ridley, called Dean personally. Mr. Martin, I'd like to discuss this situation. What situation? The one where your officers beat a veteran? There are 2 sides to every... There aren't 2 sides. When one side has photos and medical records, and the other side has lies in a police report. We're conducting an internal investigation. Good. I'm conducting a public one, and mine has evidence. 2 days later, Dean got a call from a reporter at the Las Vegas Sun. Mr. Martin, I've been looking into Bobby Chen's case. There's something you should know. What? This isn't the first time these officers have been accused of brutality. Officer Daniels, Badge 2, 47, he's had 6 complaints in the past 3 years, all from black men, all claiming excessive force. None of them went anywhere. Why not? No witnesses, no proof, their word against the officers, and the department always believed the officers. Until now. The internal investigation took 2 weeks. Dean called the chief every single day. On day 15, the chief called him back. Mr. Martin, the investigation is complete. And? Officers Daniels and Morrison have been terminated. And the 3rd officer? Officer Stevens has been suspended without pay for 90 days. Not good enough. Mr. Martin. He stood there and watched. That makes him complicit. He didn't actively participate. He had a badge and a gun and the power to stop it. He chose not to. That's not passive. That's participation. The chief was silent for a long moment. Officer Stevens has also been terminated. Dean hung up and called Bobby, who was staying with his sister while he recovered. It's done. All 3 of them fired. Bobby was quiet on the other end. Dean, do you know how many cops have been fired for brutality in Las Vegas? No. You're talking to the reason it's not 0 anymore. The terminations made headlines. 3 officers fired after Dean Martin complaint. It was unprecedented. Police unions were furious. The department was in chaos, and Dean didn't care about any of it. Bobby filed a civil rights lawsuit. Dean paid for the lawyer. The city settled for $150,000 18 months later. Admitted no wrongdoing, standard practice, but they paid. Dean gave Bobby an additional $50,000. For what? Bobby asked. Medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering. Lawyers can argue about what the city owes you. This is what I owe you for not getting there sooner. Bobby tried to refuse. Dean wouldn't let him. 5 years later, in 1974, Bobby used the settlement money to open a restaurant. Chen's Kitchen. Small place, 40 seats, Chinese-American fusion. He hired veterans exclusively. Understood PTSD, flexible schedules, gave people second chances. By 1980, he had 3 locations. By 1990, he was running a small chain, all across Nevada and California. Every location had the same hiring philosophy: veterans first. People who'd been discriminated against second, everyone else third. It became a model. Other restaurants copied it. Bobby became an advocate for veteran employment and police reform. In 2020, after George Floyd was murdered by police in Minneapolis, Bobby Chen gave an interview to NPR. He was 77 years old. His restaurant chain employed over 200 people. What happened to me in 1969 is what happened to George Floyd in 2020, Bobby said. I was walking home from work. Police stopped me for no reason. They beat me while I was handcuffed. The only difference between me and George Floyd is that someone intervened. Dean Martin saw what was happening, and he stopped it. He documented it. He testified. He made sure those officers faced consequences. George Floyd didn't have a Dean Martin, and he died. The interviewer asked, "What would you say to people who think police brutality is a new problem?" It's not new. We've been saying this for 50 years, longer. The difference now is that everyone has cameras. In 1969, Dean Martin had a Polaroid. Today, everyone has a phone. We can finally prove what we've been saying all along. At Dean's funeral in 1995, Bobby Chen spoke. He was 52 then, successful, his restaurant chain thriving. In 1969, I was walking home from work when 3 police officers beat me nearly to death. I was handcuffed. I wasn't resisting. They were going to get away with it. They had done it before. They would have done it again. But Dean Martin stopped. He didn't just watch. He documented. He testified. He fought. He got those officers fired. He changed what was acceptable in Las Vegas. He showed that police brutality has consequences. Not because of what I did. Because of what he did. Because he refused to look away.